Hey kids, it's Papa. Are you ready to explore the Bible? All right. Well, take a look at Genesis chapter 22. Go ahead and turn there. Genesis chapter 22. Now, here we find a story that's kind of puzzling. And we wonder, wait a minute, why would God do this? Because isn't this a wrong thing to do? Why would he command Abraham to do this? And yet, we find that it was love that God was exercising with his friend Abraham. And so let's take a look in Genesis chapter 22. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt or to test Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here am I, here am I, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. Here he was telling Abraham to kill his son as a sacrifice to him. Now, I am sure that Abraham did not understand, but Abraham loved God and chose to obey him. Now, here's the thing. I am convinced that Abraham looked at his son and said, wait a minute, we had that whole thing with Isaac, and God said, no, he's not the one through which the promise will come. And then he had Isaac, and he said, Isaac is the one through which the promise will come. And the promise was that Isaac would have at least one son. And Isaac hadn't had any sons yet. And so he was thinking, God, you want me to kill him? You've promised that he's going to have a son. And so Abraham so intently believed the promise of God that he was even willing to take the life of his son. And we are led to believe through what he said that he was convinced that he was going to kill his son, but then God was going to bring his son back because God always keeps his promises. We don't know how. But notice in verse 3 it says, And Abraham rose up early in the morning and got everything ready and took Isaac and left and went. And they went unto the place which God had told him. Now, we're going to find out that later on, this place became the Temple Mount. And it was where the temple was. And in any case. And so he goes, and I want you to see that when they got close, he left the servants behind, and he took Isaac and the mule and the wood, and they went on up, and they said, okay, we're going to go, and then Abraham said, me and my son Isaac, who I'm about to sacrifice. He didn't tell him that. He said, but we are going to return to you. I believe that he had faith that God was somehow going to make it happen. And so as they were heading up the mountain, notice in verse 8, Isaac had said, well, I see everything. I see the fire, I see the wood, but I don't see the sacrifice. And Abraham said, well, God will provide himself a sacrifice. And so they get to the place where God had told him, and Abraham built an altar, laid the wood on it, and he bound Isaac his son. He tied up his son, and he set him on the wood. And then he took his knife, and he raised it to kill his son. Now think about that one for a moment. I couldn't do that. And yet Abraham raised that knife, and he was so intent upon plunging it into the heart of his son and killing him quickly that God had to call his name twice to get his attention. And the angel of the Lord called to him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And Abraham, said, well, here I am. And he said, lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do unto him any harm. For now I know that thou fearest God, seest thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And then Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he looked, and behold, a ram. Okay, a ram was caught in the thicket by his horns, And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him for a burnt offering instead of his son. Now, you say, oh, okay, well, the story ended well, but why did God do that? Well, there's many reasons why God may have done that. You see, God knew exactly how much Abraham loved him because God knows everything. But did Abraham know how much he loved God? I don't think so. And I think God was showing Abraham how much he loved God. That's a valuable thing to know. But also, I think that God was showing Abraham a little bit about the plan of salvation, because many years later in that place, God was going to watch as sinful man killed his son, Jesus Christ, and there was no one to stop them. And God himself did not stop as they killed his son, Jesus Christ. And I think God wanted Abraham to know a little bit, not only of the plan of salvation and how redemption was going to come, but also the heart of God himself. And he welcomed Abraham into that fellowship of suffering, knowing what it feels like so that they could be even closer. And what a wonderful gift that was. And you say, oh, but wow, that was a terrible thing that God made Abraham do. But yeah, but it brought the two of them closer. And in the end, he didn't actually let him take Isaac's life. I'm sure that if Abraham had brought that knife down, God would have reached down and stopped that knife. But in any case, God wants to have that relationship with us. He wants us to know him and to understand him. And that's what the Christian life is all about, is knowing God. You might want to remember that. The Christian life is all about knowing God. And through this experience, Abraham got to know God just a little bit better. All right. Well, you guys have a great day. We'll see you. Bye-bye.